is our cameraman, Alan Dial, who, together with his wife Bev and son Billy, took part in the Caltex Great Victorian Bike Ride of 1984. This videotape shows a day-by-day record of this great event. A special trailer was used by Alan so that his video equipment could be with him throughout the trip, ready to record all the events of the trip in fine detail. Day 1, Melbourne to Wodonga by train and then on to Beechworth by bicycle. On the 1st of December 1984, 5 trains left Spencer Street Station, Melbourne, to take approximately 2,000 cyclists, their bicycles and camping gear to Wodonga, the starting point of the Caltex Great Victorian Bike Ride. The ride was organised as part of Victoria's 150th birthday celebrations and to commemorate the ride made by George Burston and Harold Stokes, who made a tour across Victoria on their penny farthing bicycles 100 years ago. The train ride was included in the overall cost of the trip, as was breakfast each day. Upon arrival at Wodonga, the trains were quickly unloaded to make way for the next trainload of cyclists coming up from Melbourne. Luggage and camping equipment was loaded onto the 2 trucks for transportation to Beechworth. Caltex was one of the main sponsors of this event. Cyclists from other parts of Australia met up here to start the 9 days adventure. By late afternoon, all the cyclists had left Wodonga on their way to Beechworth. In hot and sticky conditions, the cyclists found themselves coping with the first steep climb, which took them 200 meters above the level of Wodonga. All different styles of bicycles were used in the ride, including this one, which was once found damaged in a ditch in Holland. A hot day, many stops were made for drinks and a breather during this grueling climb. Due to inexperience in coping with these conditions so early on in the ride, a large number of cyclists were reluctantly forced to dismount and walk. On up this never-ending hill. Top of the hill at last.
That's our 1 hour rest. Now, 1 hour, 10 seconds.
Not everyone had to walk up. Some were able to cope with the conditions and rode to the top of the hill. .5 kilometers out of Wodonga was the first official rest point at the Yakandanda turnoff. It was at this point of time that our cameraman was tempted to give it all away and send his equipment home after his own inexperienced ride up the long hill, during which he towed 15 kilos of equipment behind his own bike. After seeing the arrival of one of the penny farthing bicycles, he regained his enthusiasm.
It is hot.
One wonders how Burston and Stokes felt 100 years ago on their penny farthing bicycles, being on their own on unmade roads. The penny farthing cyclists on this ride admitted that it was very hard work. The next 10 kilometres were almost level and were a welcome change as they were reasonably easy going before the last climb into Beechworth, which to the annoyance of the cyclists seemed to be as heavy going as the very first hill. Beechworth at last. This was the first time that the cyclists realized just how many people were taking part in this event. The sight of row upon row of tents was quite staggering.
Good on you.
Yeah, mate.
Need someone to take a picture of you to prove it. That's how it is.
No time to rest, however, until the tents were located and pitched, and then a chance to exchange notes with fellow cyclists whilst enjoying a readily accepted and nourishing meal. Day 2, Beechworth to Benalla via Glenrowan. Previous evening, all participants were handed their souvenir T-shirts. By about 6 a.m., most people were up, packing up camp and ready to join the breakfast queue.
Beechworth's a hard place for hills.
Oh, bad place for bush boys.
Gee, you've got a pretty place.
Mum, know you're on? Mum, know you've brought that with me?
Oh, I bet she said, now you won't lose that, you'll know that one.
Due to the early morning chill, most people kept their tracksuits on for extra warmth. Gold was discovered at Beechworth, originally known as Mayday Hills, in the 1850s. The area soon became one of Australia's richest gold fields. During its heyday, the town boasted approximately 60 hotels. Ned Kelly's final trial commenced in the present courthouse at Beechworth. After a minor uphill climb, the riders were farewelled by the younger generation of Beechworth. After the uphill horrors of yesterday, the riders are now enjoying the 17 kilometres downhill run out of Beechworth and on their way to Tarawinji. At about 25 kilometres out of Beechworth, the riders were enjoying the good road surface, sunshine, not much wind, with pleasant scenic countryside. After a severe talk the previous evening from the promoter, Graham Rebeck, at the request of the police and committee, a marked improvement in road manners was immediately noticeable. The first major watering hole, Band-Aid and rest stop was at Tarawinji. The riders are now approximately 7 kilometres out of Wangaratta on the Ovens Highway. The riders were assisted by the police along the section of the Hume Highway through Wangaratta. Browning Street was a nightmare due to the rough road surface. The cyclists handled the difficult conditions extremely well, and it appeared that no maintenance was needed for their bikes. City of Wangaratta, the riders are making use of the good conditions heading towards the lunch stop at Glenrowan. After passing the cattle, the riders took the left-hand turn approximately 13 kilometers out of Glenrowan. What a relief to get to Glenrowan State School and have a welcome rest in whatever shade could be found, as by now the sun was very hot and the headwind was making the going very difficult. Leaving Glenrowan, the riders turned into the road which would take them around Lake Mokoan. Here the conditions were very trying due to the hot headwinds. Mokoan must be man-made as there are a lot of dead trees. Quite a bit of wildlife could be seen from the road. Hey, mate, you're going the wrong way. Heading along the north shore of Lake Mokoan and into some dark clouds. One of the good things about this ride was that if one had any trouble, all one had to do was ride along the road to a control point like this one, and help was immediately available. This is one of the 68 school groups of the ride having a well-earned rest. They offered riders words of encouragement as they rode past. For example, "Well done," "Keep up the good work," or "Out of 100 you get 85 for riding ability." It all added to the fun.
Oh my God, good. Oh my God.
Benalla after a 104-kilometre ride. A swim in the broken river was a very welcome treat. The camp is at the Benalla Showgrounds. Once again, a local football club organised the tea, which was very nice. Here we see some of the riders tucking into their meal. Day 3, Benalla to Shepperton. Break camp, have breakfast, and on the road again. It makes one wonder what the local people must have thought as all the riders rode through the town in bunches of 10 or in twos or in one single line of 5, all pushing pedals trying to put as much distance between themselves and the town. And yet another rest stop, this time near the Casey Weir. Near the Gurumbat turnoff, we see some deaf school riders. The young chap has something wrong with his bike. Judging by the amount of spokes in his hand, it must have been quite serious.
Second, go where? Another name? D-O-A-I-E.
There were several unusual tandems. This was one. It allowed the child to take part too. At the Dookie turn-off was another water, rest and Band-Aid stop. If you look really hard, you may see the Goanna crossing. It was nice to know that these people were at every 7 kilometers in case of an emergency. Thank you, Peter VK3BOD. Having a day of nice easy riding with reasonably flat roads, it was back to the grind of either walking up hills or pushing up to the top. This young man put up a good show along with his younger brother and dad. He earned this drink. railway line and into Dookie. With the normal population of 150, what must they have thought with about 2,100 riders stopping for lunch?
Just call her and who's going to come. Oh, yes, that's
No, this isn't the Dookie tip. One of the good aspects of a bike is that it doesn't need feeding, grooming or watering, and should be in the same state ready and waiting for its rider after only 5 minutes or 5 days. The SEC at work. It took the chap in the grey dust coat all his effort to stop the riders in order to lift the pole onto the truck. Strong headwinds from Dookie, it was a relief to arrive in Shepparton and set up camp, even if it did mean facing the inevitable queue to have a shower. Rebeck asked over the public address system if everyone wanted to have an extra hour's sleep in the next day. Was it yes or no?
All the way through here. We're not going to stop on again.
Now bad news.
Once again, it was good tucker at Shepparton.
Attention please everybody, we've got absolutely delicious meals here. The Lemnos Footy Club have got some superb casseroles. We've got beef casserole, chicken casserole, and actually a mini can of fruit because we're in the heart of the fruit growing territory here in Victoria, in Shepparton. So tuck in at only $4, great value. The news before, if you missed out on it, is that we're having a bit of a sleep in. We're giving you an extra hour. Breakfast goes on from 7 o'clock and the route will be marshalled from 8 o'clock tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be a bit of a rest day for us all. So we'll give you a bit more shut-eye, a bit of a later start, but still plenty of time to get to Lake Waranga.
It was good to see the riders get up and dance after a long day's riding. Day 4, from Shepperton to Rushworth. Well, the extra hour's sleep had the desired effect. The decamping seemed an orderly function this morning. Important items helped make this ride a pleasure. One was plenty of water. Another was first aid.
There's a bike ride made of wood.
And the third was to know that this young doctor was on the ride.
Right. And do you
Right there.
They'll be right.
Now, there's a few bits and pieces there.
So we'll just let the area. Is that all?
Yeah, that's right.
On the road again. Riders, riders and riders. Wynham Street, Shepperton. Let's take a look at Shepperton from the Fraser Street observation room. Goulburn River along the Midland Highway towards Mooroopna. Guided by yet another official and signs, the riders do a left turn out of Mooroopna towards Tatura and Rushworth. Mechanical trouble here, all right. The boys had to borrow some special tools to fix the crank. Thank you to the people who lent the boys the tools.
Let's get one out now. Yeah, it's don't worry your fingers.
Turn off to Tatura. This group kindly posed for our camera. Strawberries, 70 cents a punnet. The biggest, sweetest, juiciest strawberries we had ever tasted. Tatura. We see a young couple with Mr. Trevess. Mr. because everyone thought Trevess was a girl. Trevess rides in a nice comfortable seat behind Dad. Sergeant Ron Kent escorted the riders for the whole ride and did a wonderful job along with the local policemen all along the route. Sergeant Kent even went beyond the call of duty and was known to repair bicycles on occasions. The irrigation channel out of Warango Reservoir. Another short rest. spot at the north end of the Waranga Reservoir, a pleasant area for a sit-down and a short rest. Strong headwinds approaching the one-lane bridge over another outlet channel out of the Waranga Reservoir. Caravan park on the Waranga Reservoir. Unfortunately, Alan the cameraman missed the Leyland Brothers skit put on by the travelling troupe at the entrance. Passengers waiting to take the bus into Rushworth or out to the Waroo mine. The luggage was late getting in, so add more tents to the ones that you have already seen. The radio operators kindly repaired Alan's video equipment on several occasions. This radio operator was kind enough to repair it at Shepperton. Charlie gotcha. When the organisers saw the ultra-tune bus come in, they knew that all the riders had already arrived or were on the bus. Charlie was not allowed to pass a rider. He either had to make the rider go faster, go the same speed as the rider, or put the rider and the bike on the bus. The bicycle club members would come over to Graham Rebeck's bus and fix bikes, along with the local bicycle repairers who would do major repairs like buckles, broken parts, etc. at moderate cost. Seat adjustment was a session on its own.
children's school camp, $4. A great meal. We've served over 1,000 meals now, and there's no waiting at the moment, and the meals are there waiting for anyone who hasn't eaten.
Oh, these men.
Day 5, Rushworth to Bendigo.
It wasn't a bump, Dad. The train's almost here. It sort of dropped.
After the late start of the previous day, the riders certainly got up early this morning. Breakfast time and the queues are really moving into the mess hall. With cereal, fruit, toast, coffee or tea, the local Apex Club did the riders proud. And on the road and heading into Rushworth, which is just a 3 or 4 kilometre ride from the campsite. Rushworth. Gold was discovered here as late as 1953. After the gold petered out, the town was left with several hotels and shops that are empty today. Just out of Rushworth, and with a strong side cool wind that kept the temperature down. Over the channel and headed towards Colbinabin.
Look up, lady.
Camera.
Some of these riders belong to the cycling clubs that do the bicycle maintenance every night. The belief was that they started their ride a week earlier at Sale in Gippsland, then rode to Wodonga via Walla over the Great Dividing Range. This channel is the one that was crossed the previous day over the narrow bridge near the camping ground.
Wipe your tires, please. There you go. There you go. There you go. Wipe your tires, please. Good, thank you. There you go, dear.
Colbinabin, the home of the golden grain. The store owner had to put on extra people to handle the workload. He had sold out of Mars bars, newspapers, and several other items.
Don't worry. Tired. 68 now, 768.
On their way again, headed to the T-junction at the Northern Highway. A puncture and uphill. What more could a cyclist ask for?
Joanne, darling, I wonder, could you help me as woman to woman? We do need a bit of a help here. I've been abandoned, you see, by the, by my chauffeur. I've only got a few things, if you wouldn't mind. Us women have to stick together, Joanne. Poor Roddy.
Joanne was the only girl within a group of 10 boys, and the teacher worded up this brilliant actress to mention the girl's name. Joanne did offer to carry the lady's luggage.
Thank you.
Alan had a pet name for this lady and her partner, who just kept pedaling. He called them 10 kilometers an hour.
kilometres to go.
6 kilometers to go for lunch at Myola. The long and sometimes lonely road of bicycle touring. Myola has a population of 2. A farmer and his wife, who run the shearing shed. The bad news that greeted the last 200 riders or so was that there was no lunch left. No worries, they still had their panniers stuffed with oranges and fruitcake purchased in Rushworth. Down, a nice little spot for a quiet rest. Harvesting the golden grain. Maybe this grain will finish up in the silo at Col Binabin. Breakdown. We wondered if these girls had a look at the lovely farmhouse opposite to where they were repairing the bike. The girl had fixed the puncture but had trouble getting the rear wheel back in past the gears. She wouldn't have that problem on her own. Not to worry, along came an official and had her on the road in no time. Wondered what this house had been used for. The forest just before Bendigo. And into one of Bendigo's many hotels for a bit of refreshment. Riders have most likely set up their camp at the Bendigo showgrounds and are riding into Bendigo for a look at the sights. Not like Alan, who is just only ahead of Tail End Charlie. Day 6, Bendigo to Maryborough. A reasonably long ride today across some undulating country. Bendigo at 9 a.m. Traffic very heavy. A very far cry from when gold was discovered here in 1851. My, what a history Bendigo has had. From tent city to shanty town to the magnificent city that it is today. With this lovely Sacred Heart Cathedral that the riders had to pass. kangaroo flat, and several groups of children gathered along the side of the road to wave at the riders as they went past. A right-hand turn off the Calder Highway onto the Bendigo-Lockwood Road. Undulating countryside with trees each side of the road, but with the usual headwind and bound for Lockwood. Another general store bites the dust. After the last rider has gone, these store owners must give a large sigh, look around their store at the empty shelves, and wonder what has wrecked the usual well-laid-out store. A quick glance into the till will surely make them smile.
Come, Mum.
At last a downhill, and a steep one, so these boys let it all go.
Change your gear. Where you go?
Goodbye, Mr. and Mrs. 10 kilometers per hour. The penny farthing rider would not ride down as he could not see where the road went to after the turn. Penny farthing riders can put their legs up over the handlebars so as to ride fast downhill, but they must be able to see the road ahead as they have no brakes. Only by putting back pressure on the pedals can they come to a stop, which is okay for city and medium travel, but not for fast downhill runs. It is believed that this lady had knee and ankle trouble because the seat of her bicycle was not adjusted to the correct height.
I need it on the side, on there, that's the part that was hurting.
Wattle Vale Road Junction, not far to go to the lunch break at Malden. This is not a competition, but what was this very heavy piece of equipment used for? Maybe to dig for gold, or just load trucks with road material. We will never know. There is something sad about an old wagon. Malden, we believe, is not to be altered in any way unless permission is obtained from Council. Council is trying to preserve the town as it was. It appeared that the plan is working. Take away the car, trailer, and rotary clothesline, and you could be looking at a scene from 30 years ago. '54. We wouldn't think that this shopping centre has changed much in all that time. It was a nice place. Lunch was at the recreation area just out of town. On the road again, heading for Berringcup on the way to Maryborough. Look out! Look out! Soft dirt on a downhill with a sharp left turn halfway down. Some of these riders just made the turn. Victorian wished he had had time to interview these children as to their thoughts on 2,100 riders pedaling through their town. Being well into the afternoon and having ridden about 54 kilometers and the temperature sitting on 30 degrees, who could resist a chance for a swim? We'll bet Tail End Charlie did a bit of nudging here when he came along. Billy reckoned it was great. Another battler. We don't suppose every rider saw these sheep, but it was certainly a novelty to have sheep pass while on a bike. The railway crossing not far from Carisbrook. Aston was the first blind person to matriculate and helped form the Braille style of reading for the blind. She was born at Carisbrook. A well-outfitted family posed for our camera. Everyone had to queue to use the toilets on this great ride. But this rider has taken the problem too far. Towing his own dunny behind his bike? No. After a short talk, we discovered that he was a local and had his lawnmower in the back and used it to mow his block. And this was the only hill that gave him any trouble. Maryborough still in the gold area. Gold was discovered in 1854. Its main industry now is primary products. Everybody in, and more work for the St. John ambulance, patching up gravel rash, applying band-aids, and keeping everyone in good shape. Tents and more tents. This is a wheel of a scooter that was all the fashion in about 1890. This machine was reconstructed from pictures and the original wheels by a Mr. H.B. Lamb. Bush band music and dancing at Maryborough. The concert had only just started. Sunset over the Maryborough Sports Ground. Day 7, Maryborough to Ballarat. Sunrise from the little lake at the back of the sports ground. Breakfast was really something. Look at that! Muffins, eggs, cereal and coffee.
The transporting baggage in the semi-trailers, but not bicycles. Any bicycles left with the baggage in the expectation that it will be taken to the semi-trailers may well not be shipped if we haven't got time.
The information centre at the bus where last-minute repairs are carried out before the medical inspection and breath test at the main gate on the way out.
Blowing
know it. Thank you. Bravo, Black Sheep, you must be really off. Go on your way.
There you go.
I'll leave .01 on that particular gentleman.
Very slowly.
Madam, I don't want you to ride today if you feel anything like under the whip, all right? Try this breathalyzer, please. Blow into it! Come on, use your lungs. Well, that was a pretty astonishing result. I don't think you've got much to worry about. Yes, indeed. Indeed. Yes, indeed. You're what? You're Dominique's sister. What's your name? Gabriel. Oh, well, it's good to meet you, Mark. Heard a lot of that. Come around one day. You have? I wasn't there. Right, right. You riding along?
On the way to Ballarat. The High Street at 7:30 a.m. on a lovely morning. No wind, the sun's starting to warm up. It looks like being a nice day. When 2,100 riders decide to leave a town in 2 to 3 hours in single file, it should be called streaming, because that is what it looks like. The riders follow the smooth edge of the road up against the gutter or the gravel, and as a rider wants to pass, he moves out from the main stream, passes, and then works his way back into the stream. Here is a good example. More streaming. Another rest stop. Talbot. Here, Alan broke the bracket that supports the Repco mountain bike that was used in towing the video equipment trailer, and it was important that he should be able to stand up the bike when he wanted to use the camera. So he asked the garage manager if he could find something that could be used to fix the support. In no time at all, he had made a new bracket better than the old one and did not want to charge Alan for it. On the tandem had the misfortune to have a major breakdown about 1 kilometre down the road and had to have the bike taken to Ballarat for repairs, where they rejoined the ride. We believe that they broke a crank. Out of Talbot for another Band-Aid and drink stop. successful farm that must breed small ponies. Creek and a nice downhill. We see some of the riders letting it all go, while others are quite content to keep a nice, steady pace. Not far out of Clunes. This young lady must have had trouble with the sun because she quite often had her face white. Clunes lunch stop. A rest and a bite to eat. Once again, the St. John ambulance was on the job. The injured queue seemed to be getting longer as the ride went on. The ever-important full bottle of water. Our cameraman never thought water tasted so good as after a long stint of pushing pedals on a hot day. A lovely pine tree windbreak, not far out of Clunes. The cycling conditions are pleasant even though they are pushing a stiff headwind. Part of service to let everyone know that Richards had made a duck. Maybe we'll have a chance to win a test for a change. We saw wheat being harvested near Colbinabin. Here we see the crop still green and blowing around in the wind. The same wind that is making it difficult for the riders. Mother and daughter making heavy going into the wind. The great dividing range at Mount Craven, with 18 kilometers to go before we reach Ballarat. After climbing Mount Blowhard, which certainly lived up to its name, the riders are starting to feel the heat. This is one of the ride doctors changing gears and headed for Ballarat. This rider seemed quite at home lying in the middle of the road near the mobile drink van, having a rest after Mount Blowhard. On the outskirts of Ballarat. Showgrounds at last. These riders are going for a ride into Ballarat. quite a few riders had to retire for one reason or another, there were a lot of new riders who joined the group at Ballarat for the ride back to Sunbury on the following day. Our cameraman and his group had time for a little sightseeing before it was time to hit the sack. Here we see the main street of Ballarat on a Friday night. The sunset over Lake Wendouree. Day 8 from Ballarat to Sunbury. A very early start today, with 100 kilometres to cover and some bad hills. As usual, Ballarat turned its refrigerator setting up high for the occasion. It was cold. As usual, the breakfast queue was very long and moved at a steady pace. stream of riders headed for Sunbury. The time 7:10 a.m. Merry Christmas, everybody! Only the Caltex Great Victorian bike riders are stirring in this part of Ballarat. The riders are approaching the Bridge Street Hill. The Eureka Stockade. Some steep hills in Ballarat. Again, the contrast in terrain has altered to lovely green countryside. Alan felt that this part of the ride was the most scenic to this point. This steer seems unconcerned about the hundreds of riders passing its paddock. The skill and determination of all the penny farthing riders has to be admired. Mount Warren Heap is in the background. Breakdown, breakdown. This girl's brakes have locked up and this chap is trying to free them. with another view of Mount Warrenheip. Upwards, ever upwards. But with scenery like this, the riders didn't seem to mind the hills. At the rail crossing not far from Gordon, and still climbing. With Black Hill in the background, the riders are enjoying some nice downhill with very pleasant conditions. No wind up as yet. Maybe 1.5 hours out of Ballarat. The lovely township of Gordon, which is a little over halfway to the lunch break at Bacchus Marsh. People just have to have their Saturday morning paper. Where have you two been? We wondered if those two boys looked over the road at the Bostock Reservoir. An accident story near the road to Fiskville.
scratch pedal.
The Lan. This chap rode the Bickerton portable bicycle all the way and found it very satisfactory. He was only too willing to demonstrate how it folds up. The wind is up and the riders are pushing into it. This is the good surface road along the railway line. This is the part on the rider's map that says dirt. It didn't mention the stones. If you look, you can see the track made by 2,000 bikes. The trailer didn't like it. The terrain has altered again, very dry with yellow grass. Under the railway line they go to where there is a band-aid and water stop. Having crossed the railway line again, they are heading down the track in the road. on the dirt road looking out towards Bacchus Marsh. Watch one of the group nearly get skittled by the train, close to spoiling a good shot of the train. Melbourne is hard to see, but it's there all right. On the sealed surface and all downhill into the marsh. Kilometers to lunch and 32 kilometers to go. It is going to be a long day. Lunch was at the local Catholic school. This is the Melbourne-Ballarat Freeway. Having climbed the hills out of Bacchus Marsh, the riders are now still pushing a headwind. The Merimu Reservoir. This little general store sold out of everything. Oh well. While at Toolan Vale, a rider said he had seen Tail End Charlie, but had managed to shake him off. Charlie isn't going to get this cameraman. He's off. Congratulations to this amateur radio operator and all the others who took part in this ride. From the cameraman's observation, they all did a good job. Thanks a lot. Having rounded the turn at the radio masts, it's now nearly 3 kilometres all downhill and a tailwind to boot into Sunbury. There goes the penny farthing rider, and Tail End Charlie isn't far away. Tail End Charlie was nudging the cameraman's trailer for the last kilometre, but a steep hill saved him the embarrassment of refusing a lift from Charlie. There he goes with our cameraman safe in the camping ground. That was close. There were 2 semi-trailers on the trip carrying luggage, etc. One was used as a stage for the concerts. It was a good camp at Sunbury. Nice weather and rock bands to liven things up in the evening. A good meal was put on by the local BMX club. Day 9, Sunbury to Melbourne.
child Ted having a birthday today? How's the Espandalians?
The last decamp, the last breakfast queue. It was a little sad, but never mind. Everybody had to be in at Ascot Vale in time to assemble for the ride into Melbourne along the freeway. The riders are taking it easy today after a long ride yesterday and only a short ride today. On a Sunday morning from the railway bridge. Sunbury from opposite the pub. Sunningdale Avenue, Sunbury.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
A very steep hill on Gellies Road down to Emu Creek. Some riders walked down. Most let their machines go and enjoyed the thrill of a good downhill. They had to watch out for the narrow bridge at the bottom, though.
Morning.
Oh, What do you say? Yeah, either one.
No, the riders are not going the wrong way. It is just that there was no road straight across to where the camera was set up. Riders letting it all hang out coming down into the deep creek bridge. Look at the bicycle as the riders let it go. Isn't it a wonderful machine? So simple. How fascinating to think of the reception the diamond frame safety bicycle received when it was introduced in 1895. Especially when you consider that in those days people either rode a horse, rode in a carriage, owned an ordinary cycle, which in those days was a penny farthing, or walked or caught a train. With a downhill like that, you have to pay. What with? An uphill. And what an uphill! Turning off Somerton Road into Providence Road. If you look at the road surface, you will see lots of bike tracks where the riders have been trying to find the firmest road surface. Also, the two tracks that most of the riders took. Further on, the road was so soft that the riders rode all over the road looking for a solid surface. This road borders onto Gellibrand National Park. It was here that some very large jets were seen taking off from Tullamarine Airport. No single tracks here. Mickleham Road. Melrose Street. Lebanon Reserve. As Alan the cameraman walked around taking these pictures, he saw several faces that were not on the ride, but many that were. The atmosphere here was one of excitement and anticipation of riding down the Tullamarine Freeway and the main streets of Melbourne. Most of the riders at this point were keen to complete the ride so that they could feel a great sense of achievement at having ridden the first Caltex Great Victorian Bike Ride. What a fantastic job the police did throughout the whole trip. Now, together with some traffic control people, they are going to escort the riders down the freeway. The first time the freeway has been closed to heavy traffic since it was opened. Waiting for the all clear. It's pleasing to see the penny farthings in front, as they really put in a great effort during the trip.
Hey David, you gotta come up here and get...
It won't be long now.
No, you can see in the big line if there's a couple of cars still coming through.
They're off. And here they come. Thousands of riders. Talk about a stream. This is a flood of approximately 4,132 riders.
Yay! We're on the news!
One burger, boy. That's it.
Oh, you're Owen.
Oh, yeah.
One back.
hold-up. This hold-up was the only thing that spoilt the last day. There was no official explanation given for the reason for the hold-up. Possibly the riders rode along the freeway too quickly. Thank you to all the organisers, the officials, the committee, Graham Rebick Promotions Proprietary Limited, amateur radio operators, St John Ambulance, all the caterers throughout Victoria, and all the citizens of Victoria who allowed us to pass through their towns. You won't get them now, Tail End Charlie.
Pedals turning through the day, passing cows, sheep and hay, people and towns in the Garden State, in single file, in groups of 8. Winds, hills, oranges and fruitcake. The spokes are dancing in the light along this never-ending road. My legs keep pumping up and down to move this very heavy load. The sun beats down a constant heat. Our brows are very damp, but that won't stop us cycling on until we make tonight's camp. I hope to get to the Lockwood store before the other riders do, 'cause they'll buy everything in sight, from drinks, stamps to toffee chews. The wind blows north, south, east and west. Up and down Dale it does prevail into our faces like a persistent pest. It rarely ever blew along our trail. No oranges or fruitcake left. The 9-day ride is nearly done. All that's left for us to do is complete the Melbourne run. Winds, hills, oranges and fruitcake. Winds, hills, oranges and fruitcake.